South Germany. This lecture will be divided in three parts: technology of faience production, economic reasons for the creation of the German faience industry, some examples of steins produced by the South German factories like Ansbach, Bayreuth, Kreilsheim, Künnersberg, Nürnberg, Oettingen, Schwarzenhofen and Schwetzheim. Technology of faience production. Faience consists of a porous body which is made up of clay, sand and lime. But the durability of body, the glazing and the quality of the color decoration depended on the experience of the master potter and his color assistant, who either invented their own recipes or made use of traditional ones. Until the second half of the 19th century, the art of pottery making was based on empirical knowledge, which was later succeeded by scientific chemical analysis. Clay, the basic material, was usually found in the immediately vicinity of the faience factory. Not every clay was as suitable for the production of faience. First, the right mixture of earth had to be found. Additions of lime and silic acid, for example, could make the glaze adhere better to the body and prevent flaking and cracking. Once the right consistency was found, the clay was mixed with water and stirred into a slurry, cleaned by sieving and sent forth into a settling tank. Okay. Here you see now the settling tank where the manufacturers had their clay in that they used later to produce the faience steins. To give it in the required elasticity, the clay went through. The clay, now malleable, was fashioned by the thrower and modeler into the required shape and dried until it had become leather hard. Now handles, knobs and feet could be attached to chucks, plates or platters, and irregularities or seams eliminated. Here you see the molder's workshop. It's on the left here. And on the right you see the store, where they stored the leather hard half ready faience pieces. After this followed the first firing, where the vessel was hardened at temperatures between 600 and 800 centigrades, and the water was driven out of the clay. Now began the work of glazing, which had to seal the porous body. Oh, it's the wrong one, sorry. Please check. The composition of the glaze varied from factory to factory. The principal components of white faience, glaze are tin oxide, powdered glass and a flux mixed in a definite proportion. When the above were finally ground in the glaze mill, the frit emerged together with water produced the glazing mixture. Here now you see the glazing mill, where they produced the glaze and it worked by horses or by manpower. Here they had the horse in, and here they mixtured it, here it had been the milling. It's a very funny construction of a mill. The wares were glazed by dipping, and in case of larger pieces by having the glaze poured over them. Here you see now glazing by dipping. And here you see glazing by sprinkling. The man has a brush in his hand and he is sprinkling the glaze on the faience pieces. After the glazing process, there are three possibilities of decoration before the second firing. First and most common is the decoration with high temperature colors that had to be fired between 900 and 1050 degrees centigrade. Before the second firing, the colored scene was painted on the white glaze. For this process, only the following high temperature resistant colors could be used. Colors like cobalt blue, manganese, yellow, copper green, and less often iron red and black. After the second firing, this gives the smooth finish that is customary on faience. The second possibility is the decoration with low temperature colors. That means firing with 650 up to 850 degrees centigrade. It is named muffle painting, and mostly Hausmaler used this technique. A Hausmaler was a privately commissioned artist who painted custom scenes for clients. In order to use low temperature colors, a white glazed and already fired body was necessary. This white body then could be decorated with exceptionally fine painted scenes, like usual on porcelain. To protect the products that are decorated with low temperature colors, during firing in the kiln, they were placed in a clay cylinder, in German named Muffel, that prevented the extremely high temperature and dirt from reaching the wells. That's where the name muffle painting was derived. And here you see now the kiln. On the left hand, here that's the regular ware. You see here are some cylindrical bodies. And on the right hand, here you see the muffles. And this muffles protected the Faience, Steins, plates, whatever, before dirt and also the heat. And the fire that you here in front is normally, it has to be here, and then the flame goes through the kiln like this, and here they will end. So the flames and the heat goes here through the kiln. The third possibility of decoration is cold painting. For this technique, a glazed and fired body had been necessary, and was commonly found in Schwetzheim and Ansbach. The body was then decorated with colors that were not fired. That is the reason that when found today, often only very little of the painted scene is still intact. Now we have reached part 2 of the lecture, economic reasons for the creation of the German faience industry. The creation of the German manufactories depended on two main aspects. First, the search for the white gold, which is porcelain, and second, the economic ideas of mercantilismus. The principles of mercantilismus had been import as little as possible and export as much as possible to increase the wealth of the own state. The idea of hardly every state or principality producing their own faience instead of importing the very expensive porcelain from China, or since 1714 from Meissen, spread quickly through Germany, and around 100 faience factories had been founded since 1661. Here you see now a map that shows Germany in the 18th century, and as you see, it has been divided in plenty principalities, electorates, margravities, and kingdoms. And here they are showed with different colors. That had been one, that's another one, that had been another one. And that had been the reason that so many different faience factories started to produce, because every kingdom or principalities wanted to have their own product to sell it to the other one, and on the end they had again problems, but at least it had been the idea of the 18th century. And now here you see the production centers of the faience factories that had been created in the 17th and 18th century. And I will talk later about Bayreuth, I think it's here. Nuremberg, it's over here. Kreisheim and Schwetzheim. Oettingen, Schrattenhofen, and Künnersberg. But you see that really almost every big town or whatever had their own factory, and all over in Germany so many factories have been created up in the 18th century. This photo shows you now the production years of the different factories. Here on the top, it starts with 1660 or 1661, and that is Hanau, that has been the first factory in Germany. And it worked from 1661 up to 1790. It has been one of the factories that worked very, very long, from the beginning up to the end. Others just worked 1 year, or 2 years, like this small one. But the most worked around 100 years. And in the middle of the 18th century, that's about here, you see that we had around 80 or 90 working Faience factories in Germany. In the following pictures, I like to show you the variety, the subject matters painted on South German Faience Steins, and also the large differences in quality, especially between low temperature and high temperature paintings. Also, I will show you the handles of the sign, the underside, factory markings, and painter signatures. We will start with Ansbach. This factory was founded in 1710 and worked up to 1806. Here you see an Ansbach sign. It's painted in low temperature firing. It's China decoration, and it's called, because of the colors, green family decoration, and it's a typical China decor, and it's made in 1730. The next one is also Ansbach. It's also a product of the green family, also painted in low temperature, and it's a nice hunting scene, also between 1730 and 1740. And these two examples shows you how high the quality of Faience could be. It really reached the same quality like porcelain in this time period. The next is just a common one. It's like the almost signs they are available now. It's also hunting scenes, but it's now high temperature, and the age is between 1780 and 1800. From this sign, I'll show you now the handles. These are two handles of the Ansbach factory. This is the underside of the same sign, with no marking on, but they are the factory markings that could be on a sign like this, and also the painter signatures. Next is Bayreuth. The factory was founded in 1719 and worked up to 1788. And we also start with a product of a commissioned artist, Hausmaler painting, and the name is Clemens Wanderer. And it's one of the high quality pieces you can find. It's gilded, and it's a quality that only could buy kings or very, very rich people. Second one is low temperature painting. The age of this one is 1765, and now we are starting with high temperature painting. This one is dated 1769. It's a sign of a guild, I don't know which one, but and then the next one, also high temperature colors, is St. George and the Dragon. The age is also 1760 up to 1780. And these are the typical scenes of Bayreuth. The age is also the same, 1760, 1780. Another example again with horses and stacks. And here are the handles of the Steins. They are the typical Bayreuth handles, and if you have 10 next to them, you will always see the same type of handle, how it's attached on and how it looks like. Here is the underside with two marks on. One is BK, that means Bayreuth Knöller, it's the left one here. That's BK here. This is the factory mark, and here this S, that's the painter signature, painter mark, but I don't know which one. And BK, that means Bayreuth Knöller, that had been the time period between 1728 and 1744. And the next one, BP, that is BP, that means Bayreuth Pfeiffer, and that is the time period between 1747 and 1760. Now we'll see all the factory marks. The earliest is written Bayreuth. Then you see the BK marks. Here's a BFS, that means Bayreuth Frankel Schreck. BPF, that means Bayreuth Pfeiffer Frankel. And BP, that means Bayreuth Pfeiffer. And you see here the time period when this marks had been on the side. Next is Kreilsheim. This factory has been founded in 1715 and they produced up to 1827. I will show you now 5 examples of the well-known yellow family of Kreilsheim. This is the earliest one. The yellow is only a little bit light. It's around 1760. The next is one with a hunting scene, also with yellow is starting here on the underground a little bit, but it's not the typical ones. The typical ones are coming. That one is 1765, and now the next is 1770, and that's what you are using. That's the typical yellow family because of this yellow ground here and the very bright yellow. Here, 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 and also here. St. George with the dragon. One with a horse rider. Also typical here for the yellow family, the yellow ground and the very bright yellow here. And there is one with the gardener. Also the same, very, very typical here, the yellow ground and the yellow colors. Now you will see the handles of the Steins. That are the typical Kreilsheim handles. The underside with a scratched mark. Here is a scratched A. It also has it here. And now our factory marks could look like. On the very early pieces, early in for Kreilsheim means between 1715 up to 1749. It's written Kreilsheim, like this here, Kreilsheim dated 1749. And then later you only will find the scratch marks here. And the sign I showed you of the yellow families almost has this A scratch mark on the underside. The next factory I will show you is Künnersberg. That's one of the factories that worked only about 20 years. It started in 1745 and worked up to 1768. The first one is also painted in muffle colors. It's the cover page of the Helmut Bosch Faience Steins book. It's outstanding quality. The artist is unknown, but it's painted around 1760. The next is also a Hausmaler. It could be done from Ruprecht, also around 1760. Now we have high fire pieces. a nice example of a high-fire piece. This is again low-fired, and it's a typical decoration of Künnersberg. It's named green hunting decoration. You will find it on signs, on plates, whatever. It's a very well-known decoration. And here are some simply more usual ones, more common ones, also produced in Künnersberg. This one is a piece that is signed on the underside. You will see it later. It's made from the artist Biegel between the time period 1745 and 1748. Now you will see the handle of this sign. It's the left one, and the right one is another one. And the underside of the sign. Here you see the name Künnersberg, the factory mark, and the B, that's the artist mark, and it's painted by Biegel. Now we'll see some more factory marks. Oh no, that's the wrong one. Okay, that's the right one. That's Künnersberg, like we have seen it on the sign. Then there is KB. More factory marks, KB, KB key. Or here you see the painter marks. Sometimes they have advices to the painters, and also numbers are sometimes on the side, on the underside of the sign. The next is Nuremberg. The factory Nuremberg started in 1712 and ended up 1840. The first is a Hausmaler piece, low temperature painting. The artist is well known, it's M. Schmidt, and I think that this sign is the best I have ever seen. And the sign is on exhibition in the Metropolitan Museum. So you can see it in New York, it's not in Germany. But I really have to say it's the best quality you ever will find on a fine art piece. I would say it's better than Porcelain. I never have seen such great details in muffled colors made from a Hausmaler. The next is made from the same Hausmaler. It's also painted by M. Schmidt, and we call it Schwarzlots painting because the color is only black. And now the common ones are coming. That's high temperature painting with colors. And here are some not usual ones, unusual ones with colors, or very unusual is with iron red here. But it's common stuff, nothing real great. And this is the typical blue on blue painted, and they all are about between 1730 and 1750. Now you will see the handle. No, it's not the handle, it's another one, another example for blue and blue. And this signs will be in the age between 1720 and 1750. Okay, now here are the handles. You see the typical handles for Nuremberg. Special this one, it's a typical handle that is on almost attached on almost the signs with cotton bush. Okay, the cotton bush point. And this is a little bit earlier one. I would say this is the handle of the signs that are produced between 1715 and 1720. Here are the marks. The planet mark is 1717, and the cotton bush mark, this is the planet mark here, this is the cotton bush mark. The cotton bush mark, the key with the 3 points, is around 1750. Here are the factory marks of Nuremberg. These are the planet marks here, and here are the painter signatures. Glühr has been a painter here again some factory marks of numbers. The next will be Oettingen-Schrattenhofen. And here you see examples how Oettingen-Schrattenhofen looked like. They all are with high temperature painting. This is hunting decoration. This is with St. Barbara. The age is around 1740. This is also with a paint. Santa Magdalena, around the same age, between 1740 and 1750. This is decorated with flowers, also 1750. Decorated with, you see it's also the same age. It's 1760, 1750, 1760. Also this here. These are the handles. And Oettingen-Schrattenhofen, there are two factories. At first, the factory started in Oettingen. They worked from 1735 up to 1751, and this type of painting, this type of handle. And the typical of Schrattenhofen that worked from 1757 up to 1838 is the left one here. Here we'll see the underside. I think it's from the Schrattenhofen piece. And here's a factory mark, but it's very hard to find a piece with a factory mark on. This is Schrattenhofen, and then here is Oettingen. But almost, I would say, 90 or 98% of Oettingen-Schrattenhofen are without mark. It's very, very hard to find one with a marking on. Okay, my last Faience factory is Schretzheim. Schretzheim is founded in 1752 and it worked up to 1865. The first example is low temperature painting by a house maler named Anton Bechtold. It is made around 1760. And now are usual ones like Schretzheim. High temperature firing, high temperature painting. This is a Baker Casino. The age is around 1800. Here there's flowers, there's a bird. Also the age is 1800. Same as here. That are the signs that you usually can find. Here you can see the handles of the same sign. And the underside with the typical scratch mark. Scratch marks are here. Also here. And this here is a painter signature. But I don't know which painter it has been. Here we'll see the factory markings. In the beginning, like always, written Schretzheim, and then with this marking on. And around 1800, they only used scratch mark and painter signatures. Here you see the painter signature. And here you will see the typical scratch marks you will find on almost all the Schretzheim Faience products. Okay, that has been my last picture. I prepared in 3 months a Faience catalog and a stoneware catalog, but I'm sorry that we got a delay. I would like to have it in my hand and show you the catalog with all the signs in, but it's in the print. So I can show you later on the sign test table only a prototype of the catalog. And in case you are interested in the catalog, I would recommend you that the American members should order the catalog from Les Paul, and the German members should order the catalog from. Okay. Thank you for your attention. first you can, the quality is absolutely different. You have seen the quality of low temperature paintings. It looks like porcelain. And also how they made it is absolutely different. When you wanted to have a high temperature color, also a Faience Stein with high temperature color, then you paint it in the glaze before it has been fired the second time. And so the paint and glaze is on the Stein, and it's one. It's not, you can't divide, you can't see the paint and can't see the glaze. It's in the glaze, painted in the glaze. And when you have a piece that is with low temperature paint on, then at first the piece has to be fired, then you have already white colored piece, and then on this white colored piece you paint like a porcelain with low colored paint, and you can see a little bit that there is paint on the glaze. It's fired again with low temperature, that's the name, low temperature, but it's also fired. But you can see it a little bit standing on the glaze. Okay. Another question? Okay. My idea is that it's not only my idea. It's very, very hard to see or to know the difference between the many factories we have in Germany. We have around 100 factories, and the painters, they move from factory to factory. They painted flowers in Schwestheim, they painted flowers in Künasberg, they painted flowers all over, in all factories. Also the potters move from factory to factory, and so it's very, very hard to have an idea how you could separate the pieces. And one possibility is to look at the handles, because the man that attached the handles on the pieces has been a man in the factory that has been very low paid, and it has been a man that has been not very necessary for the production. And so the way and the style how they put the handle on always stayed in the same factory. And that's the reason that you have to know how the handles look like, and that you know how they attach the handles, and then you can divide the signs with knowing how the handles look like. But at first you have to know how the handles look like. That's all? Another question? Yes, I would say when it's an outstanding design, like you have seen the house model pieces, okay, the damage will be a little bit less, but not so much, because it's so hard to find the piece, and also a piece with damage, a house model with damage still will have a value of around maybe 20,000 and 40 or 50,000 pounds. Okay. Yes. Yes, absolutely. It has to do with the kind of producing the pieces. With low fired colors, that you could paint in all colors, and because the piece has been like porcelain, it has been a ready piece, a white piece, and then you could paint on it like a porcelain. You could paint, and then you could also repair if you have done anything wrong on it. So you could paint very, very detailed. And when you had high fire painting, then you paint it on the not fired body. And the not fired body, it's like paper when you write on it with ink. The body will take will absorb the colors, and immediately the color is on the sign, and you can't do anything with it. And so you have to do it very quickly. And that means that also the quality, if you want to do a better one, it's impossible to have the same quality with high fired colors like with low fired colors. Okay.
We don't see in our office that there are many early pieces over here that the market in the United States that the knowledge about it. When we see designs on the site, people feel that we must more than bigger price like $50,000
I know quite good the German market, and I would say the cheapest Faience Stein, maybe with a little bit damage on, you can find is under 1,000 marks. It's around 600 marks, 800 marks. Sometimes on auctions you have luck to find it. And the cheapest perfect Stein will start around 1,000 marks, and then it will go up with quality. When it's a late red sign piece with just one flower on, it's made around 1800, then it's between maybe 1,000 marks and 1,500 marks. When it is from the same factory, a very high quality piece, then it could be up to 10,000 marks. And in between there are the prices. They start with 1,000 and go up to 10,000. When you include the house models, then they start with 1,000 and go up to 100,000. So it really depends on the quality, and that's the reason that you have to have a lot of knowledge. I would also say that you have to have a quite good contact to a dealer that has the knowledge and can show you the difference between what is quality and what is not quality. Because it's very hard to compare different pieces. You can see in an auction or in a catalog a piece that went for maybe $500 or for $800, and then you have another one in another catalog that went for $20,000, and you have really to know the differences. It's almost its quality, and also sometimes it's the rareness of the different factories. For example, Königsberg is a very rare factory. When it's a signed Königsberg piece, then the prices are almost around 10,000 marks, because the factory is so rare and there are so many collectors that want to have a piece from the Königsberg factory. So there is a lot of knowledge you have to have, but I think it's a very interesting market because it also there are a lot of bargains. If you have the knowledge and you can do one, and you can decide this is a Stein that should cost 10,000 marks, you also can have the chance to get a Stein for 1,000 marks. It should bring the price of 10,000 marks, because the dealer where you have found it hasn't had the knowledge to see that this is really high quality or that it's a rare, very rare factory. Okay, wait a second. I would say for the house model painting with low colors, then they use only white. But on high-fired colors, they use a different. We have seen the Nuremberg pieces that have been a light blue and painted with a dark blue, and also there exists in shred time that the body is yellow and then painted with blue. You have seen one in my show, and there are. Yeah, that's possible. There are more than one color. Almost are painted with one color, but they have also light blue or they have dark blue. Sometimes they are sprayed with manganese. Very often you have this. There is a manganese Stein, and the cartouche is only white. So there are a couple of varieties. Another question? Yes, please.
On the Stein, on the base, there's a beige material, a brown material, sometimes considered a mark that would be cleaned up.
The material of the base?
With a brown material, with a blue or something that can go along with it.
You think that sometimes on a Stein there is a little bit brown. Yeah, I think that's a clue. When there had been a pewter base on that covered the whole base, they glued it with it had been. I only know the word in German. It's Knochenleim. It's a very old glue. When you warm it up, then it will go off. So, yes, bone glue. Yes, the kind of a bone glue. No, it depends if it's a base that covers the whole system. Yes, there are two possibilities. A ring. Yes, a ring is only put on the Stein by the student, and the ring will not fall off because there's a special ring on the Stein that will hold the pewter ring. But sometimes there is the final Stein ends without anything, and then there is space for a body that covers the whole underneath of the Stein, and that's then filled with the bone. It depends on the factory. Mostly the northern German and the East German factories, they have this fancy base on it that have been used. typical for Thüringen or Erfurt. They have this typical fluid pewter. I'm sorry about my English. Okay, please. Not really. It's so at first the sign came out of the factory, and then the sign almost had been sold without the pewter. And then you had to go with the sign to a pewter smith. Then the pewter smith put the pewter on, and it depended for which pewter smith you went to. Some of them put very fancy pewter on, some of them only just a little. And it also depended how much money you wanted to spend for it, because the pewter mounted has been mostly maybe 5 times as expensive as the sign. Pewter has been very, very expensive. Any questions? Okay, then thanks a lot and goodbye.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, everything's all right. When Dr. Thomas asked me to work as an assistant in the Ceramic Museum, here you can see the museum and you can see that the sun sometimes is shining over Germany and especially over Mettler. We made a tour through the museum, finishing in room 8. Next slide, please. Here I saw the stoneware vessels Orden von Boch had bought at auction in Belgium in 1851. As a student of art history, I had worked on painting, sculpture and architecture, but had not ventured into the field of stoneware objects. I was deeply impressed by the magnificent collection Orden von Boch had put together, more so as this collection was created not for reasons of prestige, but as a means of the education of his employees. In Mettlach, we find stoneware from all the really centers of stoneware production: Siegburg, Cologne, Frechen and Raren, as well as from Kreuzen. Research has been done by various experts and made available to the members of SBI by Jack Löwenstein. There is also stoneware from Annaberg, Saxony and the Westerwald to be found in Mettler. Well, you are all stein collectors and have been studying antique beer steins and other drinking vessels, so you are the experts. But allow me to outline a few things that have occurred to me when dealing with stoneware, actual findings as well as questions not yet answered. A complete survey of the Rhenish stoneware would be too extensive, so I have focused my attention on the region around Raren. Here you see Raren. The term Raren stoneware not only encompasses every kind of stoneware manufactured in the direct vicinity of Raren. Excavations carried out in the 1950s and 60s have shown that the whole region, from Aachen to Petit Richin used the same clay resources. It is also known that in the early stages of stoneware production, the craftsmen tended to move from village to village. Accordingly, we may consider this whole area as an homogeneous pottery district. Stoneware in the early stages was not signed by the potter. The only means of finding out when and where stoneware was manufactured is through archaeological findings, as written documents concerning this early stage are extremely rare, perhaps even non-existent. The objects unearthed, however, are not these splendid exhibits to be viewed in the collections of the museum, an example of which you can see here. This showpiece is part of a collection to be seen in my hometown, Trier. What archaeologists did find are pieces of stoneware used in everyday life, as these examples show. Here you see 15th century jugs, late 15th century jugs, actually from Raren, right side, and 3 from Aachen from about the same time. In the Ceramic Museum in Mettler, there is a small jug with 3 handles and decorated with an engraved face. Though again not signed, the 3 handles, in fact there are only 200 left, point to Raren's origin, as this specific type of jug was invented there. This copper plate, by the way, dated 1698, shows the potter at his potter's wheel, giving us an impression of the working conditions in the pottery. So, in the academic research done so far on Raren stoneware, it has been noted that Netherlands and Flemish painters incorporated stoneware objects from Raren in their pictures. Now, I've tried to find out which painters and what kind of paintings show this Raren influence. In July 1520, coinciding with a flag in Nuremberg, Albrecht Dürer started out on a trip to the Netherlands, accompanied by his wife and their maid Susanna. The main reason for this adventurous undertaking was Dürer's wish to secure his annuity with King Charles V, which led him from Antwerp to Brussels and further on to Aachen and Cologne. In Aachen he stayed for 2 weeks, from October 4th to October 23rd. Thanks to this tour, we have an illustration by Dürer depicting stoneware manufactured in Aachen. However, we can also find Raren-related stoneware and paintings by other artists who are not known to have spent a certain amount of time in or near Raren. Petrus Christus, for instance, a 15th century Flemish painter, has a stoneware jug with 3 handles in his panel The Annunciation, painted in 1452. Here the jug is filled with flowers. It is debatable whether the vessel is simply used or maybe misused as a vase, as we cannot say for sure that the potter had ruled out such possibilities. The 3 handles suggest Raren origin, and one may assume that due to the fact that Christus positioned the jug so prominently in the forefront of his panel, he had been acquainted with such objects in everyday life. Bruges, where Christus died in 1472, with its tradition as a trade center, leads to the question of distribution, export and import of stoneware in the 15th century. Similar questions arise in connection with other paintings. In 1473, Erich Baus, the younger, for instance, modeled some of the vessels in his interpretation of a religious scene. According to Raren examples, 2 vessels standing on the floor, a jug and a small pot, white clay. The painted scene shows Christ in the house of Simon the Pharisee. Following Lucas 7 verse 36 to 50, Maria Magdalene, having sinned, does not dare to sit down next to Christ. Therefore she lies at his feet, drying her tears off of Christ's feet with her own hair and anointing them with oil from the small white containers mentioned above. To what extent was Raren Stoneware, or really stoneware in general, a well-known feature in Netherlands households? And furthermore, what status did the stoneware have in comparison with the pewterware seen in this picture? The same aspects come to mind when looking at Jan Moster's painting of the Holy Family, dated around 1550. The vessel here could once more have been modeled after a Raren jug. And seen next to the Bausch painting, we can observe that Moster also juxtaposed stoneware to pewter. This next slide shows a section titled Obesity from Hieronymus Bosch's 7 Deadly Sins, actually painted onto a tabletop in 1408. We can see quite a few people engaged in merriment, especially in drinking to their hearts and content, doing so out of stoneware vessels. Apparently Bosch, born in the Netherlands around 1450, must have been aware of stoneware in his surroundings. One method of explaining, maybe even proving, the Raren origin of the vessels mentioned so far takes the coat of arms into consideration with which stoneware vessels were emblazoned. The arms of Bavaria, Prussia, or Poland, as well as the city arms of Danzig, Hanover, Leipzig, Warsaw, or Amsterdam, to name but a few, have been found on Raren jugs. Obviously, these jugs were manufactured according to orders from the country and cities in question, and not according to the individual potter's fancy. Summing this up, one can say for sure that Raren stoneware was known throughout Central Europe by the late 15th and early 16th century. Another source of information shedding some light on the question of distribution can be found, no, not in written documents, but again on the vessels themselves. There are some jugs bearing the inscriptions of names along with certain professions. For example, the name of Van Cornelis de Waal, pottery seller in Antwerp, or that of Jan Alter, a ship owner and tradesman from Nimwegen. The jugs tell their own story, whom they were sold to, for whom they were specifically made, and furthermore pointed the means of distribution. In the 16th century, Raren stoneware was even on its way to the British Isles, a fact we can deduce with the help of another kind of vessel, the Mary Rose. This ship had sunk off the coast of England in 1548 and was discovered and salvaged in 1984. Numerous Raren jugs were found among the cargo, quite a few of them located in what one must have been the doctor's quarters. Interesting enough, Raren products were not only on their way around the world, but also used as containers for salves and other kinds of medicine. In this context, I'd like to mention that the pewterware observed in the paintings by Bausch and Moster can be classified as indicators for the lifestyle portrayed. In the 15th and 16th century, pewter was not as common as stoneware. There have not been many findings of antique pewter due to the corrosion of the metal, but one can be sure that pewter at that time was more expensive than stoneware. Only massive East Indian imports in the 16th century allowed for greater availability of pewter in households. To Together with the Jacques Vase and Christus painting, we now have two variants from the probably predominant function of Raren stoneware, that of a drinking vessel. The peasant marriage by Bruegel, we see here, is the first in a series of paintings by the artist depicting rural scenes. Due to his preference for this genre, Bruegel was also known as Bauernbruegel, or the Bruegel of the peasant. I'm sorry, I can only show you this black and white reproduction. However, one can still clearly make out the various jugs on the table and in the hands of Bruegel's figures. The jugs, similar to the ones seen before, are pot-bellied and have an indented base. The figures in the foreground are actually drinking from such jugs, not out of mugs, as one might expect. I've not yet been able to detect the wedding couple, but maybe they have already retired and are at this moment engaged in more informal matters. By the time this scene was painted, the stoneware jug, either as a drinking vessel, a vase, or a container for some kind of substance, had obviously found its way into all kinds of households. That is, if we rule out the possibility that they were solely used on special occasions, such as this village wedding, another painting by Bruegel, dated 1567. The action here seems to be slightly more genteel than the other wedding scenes. The figures are seated at the table, jugs standing in the corner, ready to replenish the guest's stein. The third and last wedding I would like to draw your attention to, a painting by Peter Barton, shows quite a number of people merrily drinking each other's health, once again doing so with stoneware jugs. Now I ask myself, what are these people drinking? One would of course expect some kind of beer, maybe wine, but it turns out to be milk, judging by the white color of the liquid. White beer, I'm not sure. By the way, the beer tradition of Germany's most famous beer drinking province, Bavaria, begins in 725 with the founding of the Benedictine monastery in Faience Steins. Here we have the world's oldest brewery still existing today. You know that, I'm sure. I would like to conclude the first part of my talk showing various kinds of stoneware examples with Bruegel's peasant dance. The detail here shows a man, the one next to the bagpiper, holding a three-handled jug. We have seen a similar jug in the Metlach collection, and I can show you further examples definitely made in Raren where they were invented. Now, in Bruegel's painting, we have a clue to this peculiar phenomenon. The three handles enable the commune drinker to pass the jug down the line without having to set it on the table in between drinking. In his article Past Cups, a short history, published in the latest edition of Prosit, Stephen Smith gives us a detailed survey of these drinking habits. And, interestingly enough, is also concerned with the role of peasant dance in the context. Bruegel now indeed gives us valuable information regarding the customs of his time, more so as he seems to have been quite fond of peasant dance. This favorite pastime, portrayed in painting, also found its way into the ornamental repertoire of the contemporary craftsmen, who began decorating their vase with a dancing and wedding scene, as seen here on one of Jan Eman's mannequin jugs from France. While the painters mentioned above were busy incorporating early stoneware in their paintings, the stoneware manufacturers were opening new fields of production, finding new techniques to enliven their products. Especially relief allowed for a new and wide scope of decorative possibilities. A prominent position in establishing the importance of Raren stoneware is held by Jan Emens, who is known to have worked in Raren from 1566 to 1595. Although Emens' early work was noticeably influenced by Cologne and Siegburg stoneware, he began to develop his own characteristic style around